What's up? I'm Brianna Ivy, and this is the Hear From a Professional podcast. Good morning, Daniel. How are you?
Good morning, Brianna. I'm great. How are you?
I am fantastic. I'm so happy that you decided to spend some of your Saturday morning with me. I just know we're about to have a great conversation. Before I jump in and start picking your brain, please introduce yourself to the people. Let us know, your name, where you're from, what you do, and just a little bit more about you.
Yeah, perfect. Well, my name is Daniel McCaulley, and I am the founder of Ultimus Engineering. We're a little over a 4-year-old company, family-owned, faith-based, right here in the greater Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex. We're based out of Plano, Texas. Originally from this area, I'm a hometown kid, so it's nice to be able to work on projects and with clients here in the local area. But outside of work, I have a beautiful wife and a son who just turned 3, and we have one more on the way due Christmas. So it's going to be a yes, thank you.
Congrats!
Very busy season. My wife's birthday is also December 20th, and our anniversary is the 29th. So
Oh, so December is going to be a very busy and a great month.
it is. It's going to be a party. We're looking forward
Yeah.
to it. Looking forward to it. Yeah, so that's a little bit about me and who I am and what we do, and excited to share some knowledge and hopefully just have a really great conversation today.
Absolutely. I already know that we will, but before we get into Ultimus and what you do today, we have to go back because we all started somewhere. And
Sure.
from previous conversations, I know that you were a mechanical engineer. How did you originally get into mechanical engineering? Because I know you're also an athlete, we talked about offline. So you went from, being an athlete and probably mostly focused on sports to then pivoting into the engineering world. So how did you decide that mechanical engineering was the thing that you wanted to pursue?
Yeah, it's a great question, and that's not what I always knew that I wanted to do. I was a first generation college student, came from a single parent, single child home, so I didn't have that vision put in front of me, and college was just the next thing to do. And the tie-in from the athletics was that growing up, I was involved in basically every sport that my mom could fill out an application for. I think it was just
Yeah.
get this crazy child out of the house. But when I knew I was going to go to college to play football, I didn't know what I wanted to study. But in the spirit of competition, my thought was, well, let's just pick the most difficult degree I can think of. And that was either going to be med school or engineering. Med school takes way too long. So engineering just seemed like the right fit.
Yeah.
And this school had a really great mechanical engineering program. I know you're an electrical engineer. That world did not make sense to me. So good for you that's something that makes sense in your brain. That was too difficult for me. So I decided that mechanical engineering was the good route and took some classes in that, have an associate's degree in nuclear technology. And that was kind of a nice fit
Oh,
for some of the electives that we were able to take. And really, it was just kind of in the spirit of let's do something challenging that I knew would probably pay well. That's every high school kid's dream, right? Like, let's get a high paying job. And so all those things just kind of fit. But really, I mean, but I was relatively mechanically inclined, I guess you could say. I played with the Legos and the Tinker Toys and the Connect sets, and I liked building things always growing up. So I think somewhere in the back of my mind, it was always going to be a good fit.
okay, that makes sense. So you kind of knew, or did you know that when you started getting into the classes and things, like what a career in mechanical engineering could look like, or were you just kind of figuring it out as you went?
I knew that it was very, very broad. I knew that I could do anything from aerospace to defense to oil and gas to product design. And there's even mechanical engineering sides that get into HVAC and thermodynamics. It's just
Mhm.
such a broad field. And I think that's what drew me to it was that I knew that I would have options to kind of do whatever made the most sense as I got further into my electives and started to get a little bit of knowledge in the industry.
Mhm.
So I knew that it was going to be a good fit early on just because of the amount of opportunity that was out there. But honestly, when I graduated and I landed my first career at Halliburton, I didn't know anything about the oil and gas industry. They hired me and a couple other mechanical engineers to actually go work in their chemistry department because they needed some engineers to rebuild a bunch of their testing equipment. So that was really my first job. It was just, hey, there's a relatively seemingly intelligent young man who has a piece of paper that says he's an engineer. Let's go see what he can figure out. And it was a lot of tinkering, tinkering and kind of learning on the go, and a lot of on the job training, which is fantastic, which is great to work for a large organization right off the bat. But yeah, no, I didn't know what industry I wanted to get into, and just kind of fell into it. And and kind of made my own way from there. And I think that's some of the stuff that we'll get into today.
We absolutely will. I also think it's very cool that a lot of the mechanical engineers I talk to, one of the things that they say drew them to the mechanical engineering world is just how broad it is and how much you can do in the different industries that you can go into. And then you found yourself in one that you might not have expected previously, which is always a great learning experience. When you graduated and then you got into your first role as a mechanical engineer, what types of tasks and things were you doing as a technical mechanical engineer?
Yeah, it was a little bit of product design, a little bit of machine design, a little bit of, hey, kid, go figure this out. So the facility that I was brought into was probably 60 or 70 years old. And at the time, they were building essentially a customer showcase at headquarters down in Houston. And so when they brought me on, it was, hey, basically take all this 60 or 70-year-old equipment and re-engineer it and figure out how to make it look nice to fit in this new customer showcase. And so it
Oh,
was a lot of learning about the industry, a lot about pump curves, a lot about pipe dynamics or fluid dynamics through pipes, all of the ASME code that goes into basically everything in the oil and gas industry. And it was taking some of my skills and knowledge about design for manufacturability, which obviously we had a couple classes in.
yeah.
But it was a lot of, hey, engineer, go figure this out. And I think that's what drew me to engineering or kept me interested in. And it's what I was always encourage our young budding scholars who are interested in anything STEM is that engineering classes don't necessarily, well, they teach you what you need to know, but I think more importantly, they teach you how to learn. They teach you how to be
Yeah.
inquisitive. They teach you how to explore. They teach you how to ask questions because engineering is so vast. There's no amount of textbooks that you could ever learn or certainly retain the information that would
Right.
tell you everything you need to know. So the inquisitive mind, the ability and interest and drive to go push for new information, that's a really great part about an engineering degree. And that's what I was utilizing most was just my inquisitive nature, my ability to kind of dissect things in my mind. And then certainly there were some technical aspects of how do you rebuild piping systems and how do you assess pump curves and other pieces of machinery to build the new equipment. But a lot of it, again, as someone who doesn't really know anything about the actual oil and gas world, it was a lot of, hey, go ask questions and figure this out.
Yes, and I think that's so encouraging because a lot of times I am a mentor for some of our interns and they ask questions about, do you feel like college prepared you for like industry and the role you're in now? And a lot of my response is Georgia Tech taught me how to think, Georgia Tech taught me how to learn, and it taught me how to ask the right questions. And
That's
then
right.
all the other technical courses, they kind of just give you tools to have some foundation in some things, but a lot of things you have to go and figure out power. Like I work with the power team and power supplies and the controls world, and there's a lot of complex things happening that you wouldn't be able to, like you say, retain from a class. You have to go and experience and learn it. So I think it's very encouraging to hear someone as successful as you say, I had to learn a lot of these things on the job, like going and figuring things out and working with people and asking questions. So I think that's a very encouraging reminder that no matter where you end up after college, it's going to be a lot of the same, learning how to pick up these skills and think and ask questions and work with the people who have been there for years who can teach you and pour into you as well. So that's a great reminder. And I know that today you're a business owner. So at some point you decided, I like the technical world, but maybe I'm also interested in the non-technical things. How did you make that transition? Were you aware of the difference between technical and non-technical? Or at what point were you like, I want to start venturing into a different type of work?
Yeah, really good question. It was put in front of me really early on that that option existed for people with a technical background to also lead teams. But it wasn't honestly until 6 or 7 years into my career that I was afforded that opportunity. And it happened really opportunistically. So when I started at Halliburton, they told us, hey, day one, you've got two options here. You can either be the technical expert and you can be just the absolute best in your field, best in the career, and everyone will come to you with all the technical questions. Or you can be a technical leader where you're leading teams and guiding people and you're taking all of these absolute technical experts and you're helping look at the bigger picture. And I thought, okay, that could kind of be interesting. I like puzzles and working with people. And I mentioned in our pre-call that I was in a fraternity, so being
Mhm.
involved in organizations and with lots of people around was something that always was part of what I did.
Mhm.
But it wasn't until, like I said, about 7 or 8 years in that I was part of an organization going through a pretty significant restructure. The engineering, most of upper management was offered an opportunity to go and do some other things. And
Mhm.
I kind of fell into an opportunity to take over an engineering team where I was a primary contributor. And I
Uh,
think part of that was somebody saw something in me that like, hey, this kid's an engineer and maybe he's a little bit nerdy. And I use that term very endearingly, as us engineers do.
yes.
And I think just someone saw the opportunity that, hey, this guy's pretty good with people. And I had been in some customer meetings where I was able to lead a team of other technical people through a product development question. And they said, hey, why don't you just take over this team of people and kind of see what happens? Because they had had some issues with the other management. And that
Mhm.
was really my first experience. It was a little bit of trial by fire, a little bit of drinking from the fire hose.
Mhm.
But that was when I really got the taste of it. And then at my next employment opportunity in a similar situation, I was brought on initially to lead the research and development team. But somebody higher up in the sales organization, I think again saw what the next level for me could be,
Mhm.
and then brought me on to lead a larger organization of the entire product management group, which reported through sales, but essentially had responsibility over really the entire $3 billion product line for the company that I worked for.
Wow.
And it was at that point where I was like, all right, I'm not doing a whole lot of number crunching engineering anymore. I need to get a little bit more school. So we talked about continuing to learn and having mentors. So it was at that point that I actually went back to school and got my MBA. And I think that was the catalyst that set me up to ultimately running my own company.
Okay, this is great. Let's talk about the difference in skill set. You mentioned a little bit, you were like, I think I need to go get some more schooling, some more education. When we're talking technical, you mentioned like the number crunching and using like the modeling softwares and things like that. What skills did you find that you were like, you know what? I should improve in this area in order to efficiently lead a team and be also successful in the non-technical realm of my roles.
Yeah, a lot of it was just learning about what else makes a company.
Mm,
Even in technical, or especially in technical organizations, you have your research and development group, you have your engineers, and that's what I knew. So it was really easy to lead those people. But what
mhm,
I didn't have a good grasp on was the accounting, the HR, the sales organizations. There's a lot more that goes into a company, especially the company that I was working for, which was not quite a Fortune 100 company, but pretty close.
mhm,
And they were asking me to not directly manage, which is even more difficult, is when you have to indirectly manage someone.
mm,
They're not a direct report, but you're still responsible for their success.
yeah.
And I just didn't have a good enough appreciation for what those people were responsible for and how all of that worked together to make the large cog of a company
Mhm,
run smoothly. And so that was what made me think like, okay, engineering taught me how to think about engineering and
yeah.
it taught me how to ask questions bigger picture. But I know that the next question is, okay, what am I missing here? Big picture in an organization. So my MBA emphasis was on organizational management and we obviously took the accounting classes, and so
Mhm,
I learned a lot of those things. But the best part was just giving me an appreciation. So when I was asked to communicate and to lead and to work with other constituents in the company that weren't just technical, I had a better appreciation of what their day to day looked like and what their actions would ultimately influence within the broader company.
right. I think even me as like an entry level engineer, something that I'm learning earlier on is when you have a better understanding of everybody's role that you work with, not that you know they're, super specific daily in and out, but just a better understanding of what they do, it increases your empathy for them and it allows you to work better with them. So I know when I first came in, I came in a rotational program where I rotated on different teams and being able to be like for super technical on like a design team and then on a systems team where you take a step back or take a step up and say, okay, does this work in the larger system? Like these are what this group of people are looking at. This is what my old team used to look at. And even with the program team, they're all about the schedule and is everybody fitting into their schedule and to understand what the different teams care about the most, I think helps you. in your role, just be able to say, okay, I know that the program team is looking for this, so how can I also think about this while I'm working in my role? And hopefully help make everybody work together.
Right?
As you know, when you're in a company that's trying to meet deadlines and timelines and put this thing out into the market, there can be a lot of stress. But I think when we try to do a better job of understanding each other, it can kind of help with that. So hearing you talk
Absolutely.
about the importance of that is also a good reminder. Um, you mentioned, so when you went from the technical role to the leadership aspects, you might have mentioned this, but can you talk about like your goal in the technical role was probably to design a thing or to make something meet the specs for a thing. What would you say
Mhm.
your goal was in those less technical roles and those leadership roles?
Yeah, it's really setting people up for success so that they can design that thing or they can develop that product or widget or process or whatever it was.
Mhm.
And so and this is where I really felt like I found my passion and my niche was that I could understand what they were trying to do. And while I may not be an expert in whatever that is, and certainly we have divisions in our company now that I'm not an expert in. I'm not a structural engineer, but we have a structural engineering division. And I've discovered about myself that I can understand enough to ask questions and have conversations with people when they need a sounding board. And so as I developed into more of these non-technical roles, but I was still responsible for leading technical pieces of the organization,
Mhm.
I found that setting people up for success, helping them find passion in their work, helping organize and project manage and maybe do some things to streamline processes, really just to help other people be more successful in their day to day. But I think I was really only able to do that because I have an appreciation for what they're being asked to do.
Mhm.
I don't know that I would be as successful if I was just asked to go, all right, just go manage this. I don't know, marketing organization, right? I don't know a lot about marketing. I've got a CMO. She's a marketing expert. But if I was asked to go manage a marketing company, I would probably struggle because I don't have the exact appreciation for what those brilliant folks do.
Yeah.
But I think the transition for me was important to stay technical as much as possible. And that's always been my thing. I even said this from day one when I thought about, well, someday I'll run this company or I'll have a company of my own, just kind of as a joke 15 years ago. But the idea was that I always wanted it to be technical. I don't think I could go run a bank or
Yeah.
something like that. It's just not in my wheelhouse. So I think having that crossover and again the appreciation for what the people are doing for what I'm asking has been really important.
Right. And you mentioned you joked 15 years ago about running your own company. But at what point, so when you transitioned, you did you did technical, you did non-technical, you were leading teams. So you've been through a lot of transitions thus far. And we talked a little bit about what kind of went into those. What do you think was the most challenging thing about each of those transitions?
it's it's all the unknown. It's stepping into something you've never done before, never been asked to do before. And I'm not going to say that it went perfectly well. We had lots of challenges along the way, organizational challenges, people challenges, trying to lead up and lead down. Just stepping into new roles and new industries was a challenge. So I spent my first 8 years in oil and gas, and then I transitioned over to a company that manufactures building wire
Mm,
and stepping into an industry that I knew nothing about. I didn't know, and it wasn't even just the industry, but it was the people in the industry, the people in the company, being asked to step in fresh to an organization and immediately run a team.
yeah,
How do you do that? How do you
yeah,
immediately step in and say, hey, you 15 people, you now report to me. I'm your boss, and this is what we're going to do. Well, it doesn't work out like that. That's
yeah,
that's not a good way to do it. I'll just be very clear. That's not how you step into an organization. But that was a big challenge. Is how do you get people to follow you?
yeah,
It's not so much about managing. I don't even like the word manager, other than sometimes people put it on a business card. Um, and there's leading, and then there's having people who want to follow you. And I think there's a big difference in that. You can lead people, but those people may not want to follow you.
yeah.
Um, and there's a really good book. It's John Maxwell, Five Levels of Leadership, and he talks about all these different ways of basically just beating someone with a stick and then having people like leading others because of the way you've led them. And those are kind of the bookends of the book. I would highly recommend it to anybody, any aspiring leader, anybody who's already thinks they're a leader or in any kind of aspiration thereof. Really, really good book. But that was one of the things that I read. It was a book that I read really early on. And again, getting people wanting to follow you and then taking your guidance and then leading other people. That's how we really perpetuate organizations forward or propel organizations forward. And so those were some of the big challenges, just stepping into unknowns, stepping into situations that I haven't been asked before.
Yeah. It's so interesting to hear you talk about that perspective because I'm just an engineer, right? So I rarely think about like as the team lead, like what is going through their mind every day in these meetings and how are they, trying to be good leaders in that way. So it's interesting to hear you think about that. So next time I'm in a meeting, I'll probably be thinking about it in that way. Uh,
Sure.
so at some point you decided, you know what? I think I want to actually start my own company. That joke, I'm about to make it into a reality. So at what point did you pivot and start trying to create your own company and have the idea for Ultimus?
Yeah, honestly, it really hit during COVID.
Um,
And that was a great transition time. I was only working from home for probably 2 or 3 months when COVID first started. And then the company I was in was a critical application where the company was still functioning. Certain people were allowed back in the office, and I was in a critical enough role where I needed to be there.
mhm.
But in those couple months that I spent at home, I, you know, I'm a believer, and I just call it the Holy Spirit, and it was the next thing for me. It was the next challenge. I talk about having a challenge to overcome. That's why I picked mechanical engineering, and that's I've always been involved with sports, and I'm always trying to learn something new. And that was really just the next step for me. It was just kind of like, hey, you've thought about this for so long. You've got the technical experience. You've led organizations. You've got the MBA. What's next? And I had a really great opportunity to rise quickly and very far in the company that I was with.
Mm,
And I easily could have retired there. There's
yeah.
no reason, there's nothing in my mind that says I was very close with all levels of senior management, all the way up to the CEO. We go on bike rides together,
Wow.
which if you can get that sort of relationship with your upper management, absolutely recommend. But it was a really great setup. And part of me thought like, there's no way that this is what I'm being asked to do. Like I've got the perfect setup, have great
Yeah.
work-life balance, got to travel, got to do lots of cool things. But it was just like, what can I do more? How can I be there more for my family?
Mhm.
Um, and that was kind of what did it for me was that there's something more than even though I'm working with a great organization, I wasn't working for them. I was working with them.
Mhm.
Um, it just was something that I've been thinking about, and like I said, it'd been sort of a joke in the back of my mind for 15 years. But I think as I learned more, I was like, I can help more people doing this myself.
Yeah.
Again, I had the opportunity to lead people and lead organizations, but to grow something in a way that I didn't see a lot of other people doing, I thought, one, this could be fun.
Mhm.
And two, I can help a lot of people in a very, very direct way, branching off and doing this my own. I thought, look, if it's not meant to be, I'm going to learn really, really quick.
Yeah.
And if it is meant to be, if this is what I'm being called to do, then it's going to work. And that was, I think, the piece that I kept in my mind was that I'm going to know one way or the other. And I felt like I was marketable. I had a good resume, and like, hey, look, if this doesn't work, I can always go back to work for someone else.
Yeah.
But you never know. You never know until you try, and that's a big piece of it. Is if you feel called to do something, um, try it.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't necessarily say just do it without thinking about it, without
Yeah.
considering potential ramifications. But I guess one piece of advice maybe that I would recommend to people who are thinking about starting a company or branching off on their own or just doing something crazy and different is find a mentor and
Mm,
then trust the process.
mm.
trust the process because it's not easy. It's
Mhm.
not easy. Every day, I mean, we're, like I said, a little over 4.5 years in. It's still not easy. We've got
Yeah.
a long way to go. We're doing a lot of really fun things, but there is a process, and sometimes the process is not clear. Sometimes it's challenging. But having a mentor, we can all have mentors. That doesn't matter if you're 17 or 70.
Yeah.
There's always somebody out there who's done it before and done it in a really good way. So, yeah, find a mentor and trust the process. That would be my advice.
Yeah.
And that's what's helped get us through.
Wow. And quick aside, I have to say, I'm also a believer. So I think it's so amazing that you had those seeds for so long. Like, and you can look back and pinpoint moments where it's like, I had that idea and it was just a joke. And then go through and you have all these opportunities to build those skills without
Yeah.
even knowing that it's something that you're going to do. And then trusting that, you heard the Holy Spirit say this. And then it's like, all right, well, I'm going to take this risk because I believe it and I have to walk out on faith. So I think that's absolutely amazing. And then back to Ultimus, you talk about mentorship and trusting the process. Would you say that was like the first step in bringing that idea into a reality? Because it is even something on the scale of just like this podcast to have an idea and to bring it to reality. Those they seem close in proximity, but they are really not. They're really far away from each other. So what
They
would you
are.
say was the first step between or bringing Ultimates to life when you think about, okay, I have this idea and now what is the first step for me to actually bring it to fruition?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it probably took me 6 to 8 months to realize that I needed some help.
Mm,
I actually started the company with a partner, with a good buddy of mine, actually a fraternity brother.
oh,
Um, and when we started the company, it was like, hey, look, let's start this. Let's be product development experts. Let's lean heavy on oil and gas.
mhm.
And we're good with people and we're good with this product and we know this industry. Like this will be easy.
Yeah.
It was not. It was a significant challenge. It was very hard work. It was hard work to find clients.
Mm,
Um, if you're going to go buy a franchise or you set up a macaroon store in the mall, it's generally easier to have clients at least already be warmed up to your idea or your
mhm.
product or what it is. People are generally familiar with it. Starting in engineering services, really anything B2B, but certainly a technical service offering with very small client base.
Yeah.
I think we bit off more than we could chew, honestly, up front. And my good friend, we got about 6 months in, and he and his wife were wanting to expand their family. They already had one young daughter. They were looking to bring on some more children.
Mm,
And he said, "Hey man, this is not as easy as I thought it was going to be." He's like, "I wish you the best." He said, "I'm going to respectfully ask that I bow out. You can have my share of the company." We weren't making any money. No one makes money in the first 6 months, but it was more work than either of us had expected to make absolutely no money. I think we made
mm,
like $750 in the first 5 months. It was crazy. Um, but that was the point that I was like, okay, I'm in over my head.
yeah.
Again, even with everything that I knew, there was still a piece of it that I was missing.
Mm,
And it was actually over lunch one day with an old colleague of mine who had done something similar, who had left the industry and started his own company. He said, "Hey, I have this business consultant. Would you be interested in talking with her?" And I was like, well, business consultant, like that seems like a pretty good mentor to bring in.
yeah.
And again, it was just, man, I'd say everything is about relationships.
Mm,
There's kind of that old cliche. It's not about what you know, it's who you know. And I don't really like that because it is a little bit about what you know, but there is a lot of truth into build relationships with people. You never know who you talk to one day, who you work with. And this was 6, 7 years later that I kept in touch with this individual. Fantastic man. And he was like, "Hey, I've got this recommendation for you." So I talked to this business consultant and I was like, that's the missing piece.
mm,
That's the guidance that I need. That's the mentor I need who can put together this plan, put together this process that I can help follow, where I'm not just referencing textbooks on companies, and
yeah.
because everything you learn in an MBA is largely based around large organizations.
Mm,
And there's some classes that we took and there was some experiential learning where we had to quote unquote start a company. But starting a company, again with air quotes,
yeah.
within a 4 month class is very different than truly starting a company.
Yeah.
And again, so having that mentor, again, was just sort of something that fell opportunistically, but I truly believe it's because it was the right thing and the right timing.
Yeah.
But just because something gets placed in front of you, if you don't act on it appropriately, if you don't have the wisdom or again the courage or uh, just the ability to see that, hey, this is something that I need to do,
Yeah.
you can miss opportunities. But that was really the catalyst that set us up kind of in that 6 to 8 month mark when I was really just like, man, maybe this isn't what I was meant to do.
Hmm.
And then I got introduced to the business consultant. She saw the opportunity. She saw something in me, and it was like, no, no, we're gonna do this. Let's go. And it's been just all uphill from there.
That's so great because I had a question about sometimes we have an idea and we get so attached to it that we're like, no, this has to work this very specific, particular way that ideated in my mind. But the fact that you like understood that it wasn't working the way that it could and it wasn't going, in the best possible way. And then you got afforded the opportunity. But again, if you had been like, no, I don't need that type of, no, I don't need help, or no, I can figure this out on my own, then you would have missed out on it. So being open to, you know what, I'm going to take the help. I'm going to get feedback. I'm going to allow my idea to morph and shift and change until we can get it in a way that works and works for me and works for my family and works for the industry and the market. I think that's a really important part of bringing any idea to life is being able to take feedback and knowing when you need the help. So I think it's great that you had that experience and didn't have to happen the opposite way where it's like, no, I want this idea, and then have to struggle even longer than you would have originally had to. So,
Yeah, exactly right. And to that point, we don't do any product development today. We're not in anything oil and gas related. We are strictly in the construction services market. So talking about another pivot, this is not what I learned. This is not what I spent a career doing or developing. And it's through those pivots, it's the opportunities that come to you and just being able to be flexible and being able to again trust the process. And a lot of running businesses going where the work is.
mm,
But we've pivoted immensely. I could never have imagined working in this industry and working on the projects and working with the people that I am today 5 years ago, much less 15.
yeah.
And it's been a really cool thing to see how the company has evolved and developed over the years.
Yes, and it's cool to hear the story, even as you tell it back. But also Ultimus, it is engineering consulting services company, right?
That's right.
Can you explain what the company does for people who may not be familiar with consulting or engineering services?
Absolutely. So we offer engineering services for the construction market in three primary disciplines. We offer MEP engineering, which stands for mechanical, electrical, and plumbing. Mechanical being HVAC systems. So it's essentially designing the systems that allow buildings to function. We have an aquatics division where we design essentially everything water related, from koi ponds to water parks and everything in between.
Oh, cool.
Natatoriums, splash pads, community swim centers, rec centers, all that kind of stuff. And then the third division is the structural division, which is where we design the foundation and framing systems of buildings and structures, retaining walls and other things like that. Our mission is that we create engineering solutions to build better communities.
Oh,
And that in of itself was even an evolution. That was not our initial motto was creating solutions to build better companies. But again, as we grew as an organization, we realized what we were really doing here. It wasn't just solution, it was engineering solutions. And
mm,
it wasn't just companies because we were helping individuals as well. And we have several nonprofits that we work with. So it's building better communities and not just companies. But that's us in a nutshell.
did you start out with those three sectors like all at once, or did you start adding them as you started to grow as a company?
Yeah, great question. So we started off in the product development space where I was designing oil and gas equipment for refineries and downhole tools. And
Mm,
then the first really division of the construction aspect was the MEP work, which is the mechanical, electrical, and plumbing. And the first project we did was really, really fascinating. It was these people have a great story. This husband and wife, they had run a taco truck for a number of years and had really great success. And all of their fans, if you will, were like, you really got to go into brick and mortar. Like you've got
yeah.
to take this to more people. And like us, who decided, hey, this is the dream. This is what we want to take the lead for. And they wanted to open up a spot in their local mall in the food court. And that was the first project that we were awarded, was to do a food court mall taco shop based out of Houston, Orange Taco. So shout out to them for any of our Houston friends. And that was our first project into MEP. And we did a handful of MEP projects. And then what I've discovered in this industry is that if you do one field of engineering, the architects, the general contractors, the property developers, people looking to go find engineering partners
Hmm.
want to know if you can do something else. So the question was, hey, can you do structural engineering? Yeah, let's figure that out together.
Yeah.
And that was the evolution. And then the aquatics piece of it came third. If we have time, I can tell you that story. It's kind of a fun one. But yeah, the aquatics piece of it came after, and it kind of ties in some MEP and some structural aspects, but that came about in an entirely different way.
Oh, wow. Okay. Okay. Well, you can tell any story you
I
want.
think it's pretty neat. So we talked about the mentorship opportunities.
Hmm.
And so one day I'm just in the middle of my workday and I get a LinkedIn message popped up, and it was from this high school student in a local high school up at Frisco. And this young lady, she was a junior in high school. I can't remember if she was 16 or 17 years old, maybe. Very kind of a candid comment, was just like, hey, I'm part of this class I'm taking as an elective class, and we are required to go interview some people in the industry that are aligned with a career that we might be interested in. Can I have 45 minutes of your time? I think it was a half an hour. Can I have half an hour of your time and just ask you some questions about your career, and kind of a similar conversation to what you and I are having today?
Hmm.
And I said, absolutely, right? I'm never going to say no to that, especially women in STEM, all for that.
Hmm.
So I had this conversation with her. It went great. We probably talked for almost an hour. Really, really great conversation. Super brilliant young lady. And then about 2 or 3 weeks later, I got another message from her, and it said, hey, so I interviewed 5 people, and my next step for my class is I need to select one of them to be a mentor for me, to guide me along a year-long independent, with a mentor, but independent study program where I kind of develop a thesis and work on this little product or project, and I need someone to help me along the way. Would
That's
you
a
be
really cool
interested?
school project.
Yeah, no kidding. For a junior in high school, I was like,
Yeah.
we didn't do that.
No, we did not either.
So I obviously couldn't sign up fast enough. And I was like, tell me when and where and what you need.
Yeah.
And we had a fantastic year. And this young lady is so brilliant. She's currently studying at the University of Texas at Austin. And she is one of those people that's like, I need to keep track of her because she's going to do fantastic things. And I saw that really early on. And I kind of think like maybe that's what somebody saw in me to give me
Yeah.
opportunities. But we had a really great conversation, really great year program, and we get to the end, and she presents her showcase project to her peers, and her family was there. It was this really great like black tie event. They brought in the orchestra from the high school. It was just really,
Wow.
yeah, it was fantastic. And at the end of it, she did obviously killed her presentation, and I finally got the opportunity to meet her family.
Mm.
And I was having just a casual conversation with her parents, and her dad says, "Oh, my daughter tells me so much about you and your company. You guys are in the construction space." And I said, "Yes, sir." And he goes, "Have you guys ever designed a swimming pool?" And I was like, "No, we haven't." It's kind of a weird question. I said, "We do structural, we do MEP, so I imagine there's some crossover there." And I was like, "Well, what do you got?" And he said, "Well, I own one of the larger commercial swimming pool contractors here in the DFW, and we really struggle to get a timely response on some of our engineering drawings, and it's affecting our business development. Would you be interested in exploring this as a potential offering and seeing if you can help us?" Sure, yeah, would love to see what we can do. So we worked through a couple projects together, and I found some people to help, and it is a very niche part of the engineering world.
Yeah.
But we had some success, and we figured out a way that we could get projects done in less than half of the time that he was getting projects from other engineering firms.
Wow.
And that was over a couple month development. And he essentially said to me one day, he was like, listen, if you can do this regularly, you will have 100% of my business moving forward. And our company will not even go talk to anyone else. Can you support us? And I said, yes, sir. And that was the start of our aquatics engineering division. And now we have full-time employees, and we're in multiple states across the nation designing aquatic facilities for all kinds of folks. But that was how we got into it. So it was really, really cool.
Wow. Again, power of relationship and just knowing people. Like, who would have
Yeah.
thought that you would have acquired that portion of a business just by being a mentor? Also
Yeah,
speaks to mentorship and the blessings and opportunities that can come out of that as well. So, wow,
that's right.
that's a really
And
cool story.
yeah, and I didn't know that about him when she reached out to me. I didn't really know anything
Yeah.
about her parents other than yeah, and I don't even honestly think that she really knew. Like she knew that her dad was a business owner,
Yeah.
and he owns several businesses. So I think that was like, again, it wasn't part of her motive. It certainly wasn't part of mine. It was just
Yeah.
like, yeah, we could probably help you. Yeah, so it's really, really cool.
Very cool. And then you said something that um you talked about, so you have engineering services that you offer, and then you partnered with another business owner. What is the relationship between like all the different people when you're trying to do a project? Does that question make sense?
It does. So there's lots of different people on the
Okay.
projects that we work on, and I'll briefly summarize it in. Let's say somebody wants to build a new building.
Mm-hmm.
They have an idea. Let's say maybe they want to build, I don't know, a shoe store, for example,
Okay.
right? So a commercial retail establishment. They first need to go find a plot of land. So
Mm-hmm.
that's working with possibly a commercial realtor. Maybe they're a developer, maybe they're just a business owner, but you got to go find a piece of land. And then just because you buy a piece of land doesn't necessarily mean that you can, one, put a building on it, put any building on it. There's lots of constituents that you go through. There's zoning and approval. So the
Oh,
first
okay.
engineer that you would typically work with is actually a civil engineer. And so a civil engineer works with a lot of land development work. They're going to work on, we've heard the term zoning. So like what a plot of land, what kind of building you can put on a plot of land.
Yeah.
For example, you generally can't put a restaurant next to a tire shop, next to a office building, next to an industrial warehouse. There's
Yeah.
general zoning rules that cities put together to keep, again, you don't want to have a Taco Bell right dead smack in the middle of your neighborhood, right? Like
Yeah.
that's because of zoning. So
Okay.
you would work with a civil engineer. And then once you get all that piece figured out, then you need to start talking about, okay, well, what is my building going to look like?
Hmm.
And that's generally when you bring on an architect. And so an architect is kind of the visionary of a project when it comes to the aesthetics. How tall is the building? How wide is it? What kind of finishes are we using? What does the floor plan look like? What type of light fixtures are we selecting? If it's, a shoe store, where do where in the store do you put your checkout counters? Where is your restroom? If you're doing a restaurant, they work with some constituents on how do we design the kitchen equipment. And
Mm.
then once that gets largely flushed out, that's when you would bring in the next consultant, which would be where we would come in, where we design your HVAC, your electrical, and your plumbing systems, and then also the structural design of the building. So
Okay.
it's sort of an iterative process as you go down. And that's just one example of a new building. If a building already exists, then you skip some of that stuff. But essentially, that's where we would get plugged in is generally working for an architect or someone like a design build general contractor. So if a general contractor has the design scope and the building scope, they would potentially go hire the design consultants, which is another term that we use in
Okay.
our industry, and that's where we get plugged in. And then after us, there's lots of you have interior designers,
Mm.
you have systems that design the fire protection systems, you have your audio visual, you have your low voltage, which is like your CCTV and alarm systems and things like that. So it's a pretty vast and broad industry, and we have
Yeah.
such a small part of it. But we work with a lot of people. There's anywhere between 10 to 15, maybe even more different design constituents on a project that we would partner with for any one project.
Wow. Okay, that was fascinating. I've gone off script and now I want to pivot back
Yeah,
on
okay,
script.
sure.
Um, so when you started out as a young business, how did you build both your clientele and your employee base? Like, how did you go about doing those two things?
Yeah, so the employee, I'll answer that one first because that's a little more straightforward. Um, and this, I guess I'll talk to it after the pivot, or at least
Yes.
guiding towards the pivot of the construction trend.
Hmm.
So again, I'm not a structural engineer. I'm a mechanical engineer, so I understand HVAC systems,
Hmm.
but I certainly don't understand electrical. Again, good on you for that.
Yeah.
Plumbing systems, I kind of have an appreciation for because of my time spent in oil and gas. but I didn't have the working knowledge of the construction industry.
Hmm.
So the first thing I did was I went and found a contractor, and contractor from the standpoint of like a 1099 contractor who was an individual who owned his own company, but essentially he was a one-man shop. And he's an MEP engineer, and he had some opportunities or some bandwidth to help me with this taco shop that we did. And so I found him and I said, hey, and we had, interview process, wanted to make sure that we were going to be able to work together.
Hmm.
And so I essentially subcontracted the work through him.
Okay.
And the next project, we did something similar. And then as we got into structural engineering, I did similar things. And then what happened was I built this really strong contractor network where I
Hmm.
had 6 or 7 MEP engineers and 6 or 7 structural engineers. And then when I got to the point where I was realizing that, hey, all these people together are probably doing 60 to 80 hours a week worth of work, maybe I should look at bringing on a full-time employee.
Mm.
And that's when I went into the market and I found my first full-time employee. But the conversation that I had, and this was incredibly fortuitous. I never learned this. I never thought about this. It just kind of happened. But I reached out to all these contractors and I said, hey, in the spirit of transparency, I'm bringing on a full-time employee as this company grows.
Hmm.
The work that I bring to you directly may drop off a little bit in the short term, but I'm going to continue to grow. And
Hmm.
as we do, we probably won't be ready to bring on an immediate full-time employee again. Can I reach out to you in some amount of time? And would you still be willing to support me on projects, even though it's on a little bit, maybe less capacity than we're doing now? And
Hmm.
they said yes. And so what I realized was that I could grow the company like that, where I didn't have these massive jumps of, well, I've got to have enough work and my in-house employees have to just be run absolutely ragged, is we
Yeah.
keep a really good flow of projects and I can rely on this contractor base that I built in the very beginning and it all works seamlessly. A lot of them have company emails, a lot of them know our clients already.
Hmm.
And so when my in-house employees aren't able to keep up with the work, which fortunately is a lot of the time the case, I can still rely on these contractors that we worked with from the very beginning. And so it's been a really great, easy transition to work them in and out of projects as we need it.
Wow.
And then on the to answer the other part of your question on the sales development side, this is one of the things that I needed a lot of help with in the beginning with a business consultant.
Mm.
It doesn't matter if you're designing buildings or selling sneakers, sales is the lifeblood of any organization.
Mm.
Even engineering firms, even technical firms, even from the smallest to the largest companies like the one that you work for, sales is everything. And it doesn't matter how good an engineer you are, how good your engineering team is. If
Yeah.
you don't have projects to work on, it doesn't matter. And so we work in, gosh, we tallied up the other day. It was like 15 different ways or more that we bring on, or that we go out and look for new clients and do some business development.
Mm.
And being on podcasts is a new venture for us. It's how can we share our story? How can we um, get out there and share our name even more? So again, thank you so much for the opportunity to be here today.
Absolutely. Thank you for joining.
Yeah, for sure. And it's everything from social media to Google ads to being keynote speakers at different industry events.
Hmm.
It's trade shows, it's networking, it's mentoring, it's even silly things like cold calling. You don't think about cold calling for an engineering firm, but look, it's all a numbers game.
Yeah.
And it doesn't really matter what you do. Certain things have a better ROI and certain things have a better success rating than others. But generally, it's 1 to 3% is about the best that you can ask for on most business development initiatives.
Yeah.
Well, if you do 1 to 3%, but let's say you're doing 100 different things, well, one times 100 is 100. So
Yeah.
you're the more different things that you can get out there and do, and the more different initiatives that you can take on as a business owner to get your name out there. We've toyed with doing the idea of billboards. We put up signs at construction sites. Um, every possible thing that we can think of, and this is a lot of what our business consultant, who's now our CMO, does,
Mm.
is come up with new creative ways just to get our name out there more. The good thing is 70, I think the last number, 72 or 75% of our clients give us repeat work, which is fantastic. We love that.
Yeah.
But how do we continue to grow? How do we continue to meet more people? It's all about getting out there more and just more opportunities to do things in new and creative ways. And yeah, it's scary. right?
Right.
And not everything works. Uh, but the more things that you can try, and I forget who said it. I want to say it's Benjamin Franklin, but that's probably wrong. But the quote is essentially, I've never failed. I've just found, I think it's 1,000 ways that something didn't work, or 1,000 ways I can do something better. There's
Yeah.
something there. I should know who said that, but that's very, very true. And that's
Yeah.
what we try to do every day is just try to find new creative ways to get better and get in front of more people.
Yeah. Do you have a favorite type of project to take on, or do you just like to take on the most challenging or
I mean, the challenging ones are nice, but if all you do is challenging projects, it can kind of be a beating.
yeah.
But I would say the type of project I think is the most fulfilling, at least for me personally, would be the aquatics projects for us. And
Mm,
the reason why is if you walk into a commercial office building, you can appreciate the architecture. Wow, this is a really big building.
yeah.
But you go in there 3 or 4 times and it's kind of just another building.
Yeah.
Um, but with a water park, oh man, you can go down a water slide a million times and it never gets old.
Yeah.
And so just working with aquatics facilities, especially when it involves children and we do play areas and splash pads, like that's just so cool.
Yeah.
When things get built and you go out and you're participating, or you just know, again, we work all over the country, so I don't always get to visit job sites, but um, just knowing that all of those aquatic facilities are designed for joy and entertainment. And
Yeah.
that's really, really cool. Even like the commercial or even the competition natatoriums that we do where they're having swim meets.
Hmm.
It's a workout, it's a job in some instances, but it's still fun.
Yeah.
And it's people watching their children. And so yeah, all of the aquatics projects we do are at the end of the day, it's designed to be joyful.
Yeah.
And that's a really cool thing to know in the back of our head.
That's really fun. You know what? And when you said that, because I don't go to a lot of water parks, but when I do, or like even just a theme park in general, it's like this is just for joy and fun
It
and
is.
enjoyment. So
It is. And even at your, if you have a pool at home or your community pool, and
yeah,
even if it's just, hey, I'm gonna go sit on this tanning ledge, or I'm gonna go play water volleyball, or
yeah.
just hang out
Or
around
just
a
sit
pool,
around the pool.
just sit
Yeah.
around and cook hamburgers and hot dogs or whatever. It's
Yeah.
like that's all part of the ambiance that goes into putting that pool in that location. And yeah, there's lots of different ways to enjoy a pool. But yeah, for
Yeah.
sure.
That's very cool. So you said Ultimus is a little over 4 years old?
Yeah, 4.5. We were
Four years.
founded in April of 2021 officially.
Very, very cool. And you guys have been very successful thus far. What do you think has been the key to the success of your company so far?
It's really the trust the process. It's keeping our head down. There's lots of late nights. There's lots of late nights. There's work on weekends. I try to balance that as much as I can now, certainly with the young family.
Yeah.
Um, but really the key to success is again just trusting it, and then also it's surrounding myself with the right people. I
Hmm.
can't do this all on my own. I can't even lead the company all on my own hardly, much less do the projects.
Yeah.
And somebody told me really early on when I was getting into more leadership roles, their quote was hire good people and get out of their way.
Mm.
And that's what I try to do. And one of the things I think that differentiates us as an engineering firm is that we put our engineers directly in contact with our clients.
Mm.
We don't hide them behind project managers or account managers. The engineer responsible for doing the design, signing and sealing those drawings, they're the ones leading the client meetings. They're the ones setting up the client meetings, having the design reviews. And that's very different, I think, than what is generally known about the engineering industry, where
Mm.
most engineers, you give them a job, you put them in a cubicle, don't talk to the customer, you're technically focused, you're not in sales, you're not in business development, you're not in project management, just do your project and give it back to us. And I want to turn that on its head because I found that a lot of engineers struggle with the communication side of things.
Hmm.
But when you can find an engineer who does communicate well, or you can teach an engineer to communicate well, the return on that is phenomenal. The customers love it. They love being able to talk to the people responsible for their project, not playing the telephone game of,
Yeah.
well, my technical person asked my salesperson, asked your salesperson, asked your technical person. Let's just get the technical people in the room, and that streamlines projects. It makes things move faster. It saves a lot of money, and people appreciate just being able to communicate with those technical aspects. So I think from a company perspective, that's really been our secret sauce
Mm.
is that we allow and quite frankly require our engineers to be customer facing, manage their own projects, and manage the expectations through those projects and facilitate those relationships with the customers.
That's really cool. And it's also got me thinking, I know like even in my role, there's been this push for engineers to talk to more of our customers and like what are they doing with the MRI scanners? Because a lot of times we are just looking at schematics, doing the work, doing the testing, working on the hardware. But when you actually get to talk to clinicians and researchers who are trying to figure out like how can we improve surgery methods and how can we, do all these things in the healthcare field with the scanners that we produce, and then you go back to work and it's like what I'm doing really does have a large impact on people's life and quality of life and how
Sure.
we can improve and help people. And I actually just went to a talk this week where I had that experience. It's like sometimes you can get so burnt out just doing the work, but then when you talk to people and it's like, no, these are the images that they're getting and these are the things that they're trying to do and achieve and these are the things they're asking us for. Like, do you guys have the capability to like add this thing so we can improve how we do X, Y, and Z? So I think it's really cool that you started with that mentality because I think it does really help the engineers. Um, and from being a business owner, I know you talk about some of the challenges from leading a team. Would you say that you have similar challenges now owning your own business, or are there different challenges that you have to overcome in that role?
Yeah, there's a lot of the same challenges, but there's a lot of new challenges. Now I'm not just leading people within an organization directly for my common goal, but I'm working with vendors, right? So we have
Mhm.
people that help us with accounting and with marketing and with some of these other things that are not, again, directly in my wheelhouse. And so those are some of the new challenges, even one step further than in my previous organization, where I had to work with accountants and these people, but it was all internal to the company.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, there are challenges dealing more so with customers now more than ever
Yeah.
as a company, and my actions have very prevalent and very obvious um, consequences, both positive and negative.
Mhm.
And my wife is fantastic about this. When we have a challenge with a client or with a project, and I'm either frustrated or stressed about it, and I'm gonna fire off an email. She's like, "Hey, maybe we think about that email or that text message before you send it." She's like, "Just remember, you aren't hiding behind a $4 billion company anymore. This is you. This is our brand. This is us here, and you have to think about things." So yeah, that's a new challenge where you work for a large company, and if you smart mouth a customer or you get crossways with a vendor, it's like, whatever, right? You don't
Yeah.
feel that personally, but now it's like, wow, this is our baby. Well, other than our baby, I won't let him hear us say that, but uh, this is there are much larger ramifications to actions, but again, both positive and negative. And
Yeah.
so those are some challenges that we see. It's like how do we, and I think another piece of that on the positive side is how do we a little bit temper expectations when we have a really good month or a really good quarter? How do we check ourselves and say like, okay, we only had this great month or great quarter because we're doing the right things. This is not the time to take the foot off the gas. Like again, continuing to trust the process, not resting on our laurels, continuing to do the right things.
Yeah.
um, we want to be appreciative, and we certainly are. We're very grateful for everything that we've been given, um, but we don't want to get complacent. We don't want to get overconfident. We don't want to expect that next month is going to be exactly the same.
Yeah.
So, how do we have a goal in mind? How do we know what we want to try to be working for? And then, how do we continue to do that month over month, quarter over quarter, year after year, where we continue to grow? Which is a very different way of thinking about things.
Yes. And this is also a pivot, but you mentioned it. Do you think that working with your wife gives you some sort of advantage as for being a good business owner, or even like you said, her helping you kind of think about the consequences of any potential actions that you have? Because I know sometimes when we hear, I guess in the world and culture, it's like, do I really want to work with my spouse, or what kind of other issues that might bring up like in the workplace. So do you find that it's a good flow for you guys?
It works really well for us. And I've certainly heard that hesitation to working with a spouse. I think it kind of depends. Well, every family dynamic is going to be different. So
Yeah.
certainly that plays into it. but I think it works so well for us because we're working on very different things in the
Mm,
organization. If you had two people that were, let's say you had a joint ownership. Again, let's say a husband and wife want to go. I use the analogy of a shoe store because that's just
mm,
whatever on my mind today.
that's
We're
fine.
going to an ice cream social this afternoon. We're donating shoes to children, but
Oh.
yeah, so shoes are on my mind. We got a whole delivery last night. Um, but yeah, let's say a husband and wife wants to go run a shoe store
Mhm.
where they're largely responsible for the same things. They're standing shoulder to shoulder all day. They're, in the same trenches. And then you go home and you're still in the same trenches, but it's in the home life and you don't really get separation. But with my wife and I, we're working on different things in the company. She's taken a little bit of a step back recently with our new child that's on the way, and then more so with my son. So we're not sitting next to each other all day, every day, where there's no separation. So it's a really nice blend of both understanding the projects, understanding the pain points, being able to soundboard off of each other,
Mhm.
but we're not physically next to each other 24/7. And
Yeah.
I think it's important to have some alone time and some separation. And not every marriage or relationship works well, being on top of each other all day, every
Yeah.
day. I think we do need some personal time to think and reflect and kind of live your own life to a small degree. And so we found a really nice flow for that.
Yeah. On your website, you have that Ultimus designs and delivers better, faster, and less expensive than competitors. When I first learned this, I guess this business project triangle, I remember at Tech, my professor was like, most of the times the best you're gonna get is 2 out of 3. You're either gonna get quality and speed, speed and quality, price and speed, but you'll never get all three. And
Right.
what have you found to be the key in successfully and consistently hitting all three of those points?
Yeah, really, really great question. We put that on there to make people ask that question. So thank you for asking about that. I'll kind of run through them really briefly, just one by one, and then talk about how they all tie together. So, doing things better as licensed professional engineers, we don't really have a lot of leeway on that.
Hmm.
There's certainly some times when you can do more or you can do less. And everything that we do, and you can appreciate this, is driven by code at the very basic level, whether it be it the National Electrical Code, whether it be the mechanical code, whether it be the plumbing code. Um, Everything is driven by code. Now that's the bare bones. And somebody said, I think I saw this on someone else's website the other day. I can't remember who it was, so I'll paraphrase it so I don't get in trouble. But essentially, his quote was, if your defense of your design is that it meets code, you might as well say if it was done any worse, it would be dangerous. And I'm like, you know what? That's really valid. That's
Yeah.
really valid. And so I don't necessarily, that's certainly not my own words, but yeah, I think that there is a way to do something better, and it's doing your due diligence and it's doing the right thing for the customer. It's the extra quality control. It's just the accountability aspect of it. So that's important to me. Being a man of faith, being in sports, and I can appreciate, especially on the sports field, that's why you practice. And they say you play how you practice. And so doing the repetitions, doing the drills, so doing things right the first time, that's how you do it better.
Yeah.
Doing it faster and doing it less expensive are actually pretty closely tied together. And it really comes down to greed in an organization. A lot of times prices are inflated
Hmm.
because people just want more money. And that's the goal of any organization is to make money. I mean, not obviously if you're a nonprofit, you have a different mission, but for a for-profit organization, the goal is to make a profit.
Yeah.
But how much profit is really needed?
Hmm.
That's where the cost thing comes down to. And certainly as an organization grows, your costs inherently have to grow because you have overhead like an accounting team or a legal team or a marketing team. You have a lot of non-immediate revenue generating employees that
Hmm.
have to be accounted for. And for us, still being a smallish organization, we don't have a lot of that extra overhead. I don't have a $20 million office building that I have to pay for.
Yeah.
So we're able to reduce some of that overhead, which effectively allows us to reduce costs. Now, I could go price my projects just like those larger firms and probably do well because obviously they're pricing it that way,
Yeah.
but I don't have to. And so I can work with some smaller firms. I can work with the smaller developers, with the architects who they're not doing a 500,000 square foot project. They're doing a 5,000 square foot project. And
Yeah.
you just can't price things the same way to help those people. And the speed thing is very similar. It's because I'm willing to make less money personally because I'm going to pay a contractor to help when my internal team can't take care of it to keep the lead times low. I bring in the contractor, helps get things done faster,
Yeah.
and I don't change my price. If I'm paying a contractor or I'm paying my internal employee, the price that I charge a client is the same.
Yeah.
And so they don't see an increase in cost just because my costs go up. At the end of the day, again, as long as I can provide for my family and as long as I can provide for the families that we employ, that's all I need. I'm not keeping up with the Joneses. I'm not moving to Beverly Hills. Um,
Yeah.
we've got a roof over our head and my, air conditioner kicks on when it gets warm outside. Like I'm good. So that's how we do it different.
Yeah.
I'm not greedy. I take care of the people that work for us, and I think we do the right things for the right people.
That is very amazing. And it also speaks to integrity, like the role that integrity
Thank you.
plays in business and being able to be a good business owner and treating people well. So that's really great to hear. And I'm glad that that's how you operate your company. As we talk about, you being 4.5 years old and from the outside looking in, seems like very successful. But
Thank
for
you so
you
much.
yourself, how would you define success in your career? And what do you think have been maybe some unexpected keys you found to having success?
Yeah, success is honestly, it's all about the personal satisfaction. If you're enjoying what you're doing, I think you're going to be successful. Now, success from a business perspective is one thing, but again, it's keeping the lights on, it's keeping people's families fed, it's providing benefits for insurance or 401k or whatever that may look like. Um, Again, it kind of goes back to that greed conversation, right? It's like
Mhm.
success for me is not driving the Lamborghini and pulling up to my penthouse. It's about again providing for my family, helping other people realize their dreams, whatever their dreams are, whatever success means for them. And I don't say that lightly. I know that may sound cliche or whatever, but that really is what I found. I think has set me up for success and some of the keys for my success and some of the things we've been able to accomplish. It really does go back to those relationships
Mhm.
and focusing on other people, trying to put other people first. Not that I don't enjoy nice things because I
Yeah.
certainly do, but the success for me is seeing other people grow and be excited and find joy and appreciation and satisfaction in their work.
Yeah.
And whatever that may be, there's a good book. It's called Moonshot, and it talks about a number of different things, but essentially it's surrounding the time in history where the United States went to the moon.
Mm.
And one of the aspects of that book that I picked up was essentially the nugget or the advice of whatever you're working on, find some way to make it personal.
Mm.
And I first implemented this back when I was at the wire and cable company. I had a fresh engineer right out of college, didn't know anything about anything other than he was a hard worker and he liked to design stuff.
Yeah.
And we had some mentorship opportunities again as he was a new employee that he was coming in that I hired. And we got maybe a 6 months to a year into his employment, and I was like, hey man, how are you doing? How are you liking this? Is this everything that you wanted it to be? Again, we're designing wire and cable.
Yeah.
As a young 20 something fresh engineer, he was like, yeah, man, it's okay. And I was like, well, what do you like to do outside of this? What's your hobbies?
Mhm.
He's like, well, I like cars. I like to tinker with cars. Like I've got a couple of builds. He's like, I like to race cars. And I'm like, all right, well, when you are wanting to design, whether it be a new body kit or you're messing with your interior or you're tinkering with your engine, like how do you think about those things? Anyway, so we had a really great conversation, but essentially what the conversation boiled down to was we got him to think about work in a way that he was able to take the things that he learned and the skills that he developed in the workplace back to his personal passion. So when
Mm.
he was working in SolidWorks in a design software, or he was working with a piece of machinery, I got him to think about is there any way that I can apply this to my personal passion? And that was just like a big light bulb for
Yeah.
him. And he did fantastic the next 3 or 4 years when I was managing him at that organization before I left. Um, and that was just a really cool way of like my success was his success. And again, as a fresh engineer, fresh out of college, you don't know anything about this industry or that industry or
Yeah.
anything. But setting him up for success and whatever that meant for him. But I think it all comes back to the personal satisfaction or gratification that you take in your work. And my wife, she checks in with me regularly. Hey, are you still enjoying this? Like, is this
Yeah.
everything you wanted it to be? And you've got these employees now, and you've got these customers, and some are easier to work with than others. And she's like, is this still what you want to do?
Yeah.
And the answer is yes. It's like this is it. And we know that it's not always going to be easy.
Yeah.
But having that check-in, I think, is important too, because your own concept of success and your own concept of what you want to be doing can and certainly will change over time. And that's certainly allowable. Just like our business has changed, people's opinions and their preferences and the things that they like are allowed to change. So,
Yeah.
I always tell people, don't feel like just because you're in one career or one company or one whatever, that there's not opportunities to still grow. And just like your preferences can change. Sometimes I like chocolate ice cream. Sometimes I like
Yeah.
strawberry ice cream. It just kind of depends on how things go. And so just being flexible is really important to making sure you have that gratification what you're working on.
Yes, that's a great reminder to check in with yourself about how you feel about what you're doing. And also not, you mentioned keeping up with the Joneses earlier, making sure that how you feel about what you're doing and your success is not based on trying to do that. It's
Oh
based on
man.
how you feel and, you more than anybody else. So that's a really good reminder, especially in today's world where
Yeah.
so much of what we consume is on social media is,
Oh,
makes us feel
dangerous.
ways. Very dangerous, can be very dangerous. So it's a
Very
good
dangerous.
reminder to always check in, not even just about your career, but even just in your personal life and
Sure.
no matter what you're doing to check in with yourself. So,
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
okay, now I'm going to ask you a couple of questions that make you use your imagination a little bit more. Okay.
Okay. All right.
All right. The first one, if you were going to retire and you had to pick your
Mm,
successor, someone to come in and take your baby, for lack of a better term, your company into the future,
okay.
what would be the top 3 to 5 qualities that you would look for in your successor?
Yeah. The first thing would be having a well-rounded personal life. Not
Mhm.
someone who is just focused on, I'm going to be the best business person ever.
Yeah.
Life is more than that. You have to have other things that you want to do. And it's interesting you mentioned retirement. I've kind of joked like, I think I could retire today. Like outside of the business and all this fun that I'm having, and I
Yeah.
don't want to retire because I'm having a blast doing it.
Yeah.
But the things that I'm interested in, the things that I want to learn and experience, and I'm not just talking about I want to travel the world. All
Yeah.
right, so does everybody. Um, and again, that would be fun. It's certainly on my list, but there's hobbies and things that I want to experience and things that I want to try. Um, and I think that just that inquisitive nature in turn makes me better in the business because I'm always asking questions and wanting to try new things in the company. So I would say that's really the first thing. Not only having interests, but making time to fulfill those interests
Yeah.
because you can get burned out real quick in any job, especially running a company, if you don't have any way to release and get away and go do something else, whether it
Yeah.
be working out. I'm always been obviously playing sports, like my physical fitness has always been super important to me. So I always make time for that. I always make time for my spiritual health. That's super important to me. But then just other hobbies, whether it be I've tinkered with woodworking and doing home remodeling projects and all kinds of stuff. We've got a small little garden in the backyard. I've got some watermelons I'm trying to keep the squirrels out of, but
Oh,
uh,
good luck with that.
yeah, it's not going well. But yeah, so being well-rounded is, I'd say, the first thing.
Mhm.
The next would be being a good communicator and being willing to build relationships with people that you may not normally expect yourself to build a relationship with.
Mhm.
Especially running a technical organization, we can get so caught up in the nuts and bolts and the calculations and the simulations of what we're doing.
Yeah.
But if you can't get out there and communicate both with the internal people, which is arguably as important, if not more, than communicating with the customers. Because again, if you're not checking in with your people, hey, how are you doing? I had to catch myself yesterday. It was 4:50, and I was like, man, I've got an engineer that works remote. Like I haven't talked to him in a couple of days. Like we've
Yeah.
had some email exchanges about, hey, project this, project that, but hey, man, how are things going? Like
Yeah.
are you doing okay? Do you feel okay with the project flow? Like what are you guys doing this weekend? So having that personality that understands you got to check in with people. And then I think the third thing would be is maybe this goes without saying, but it would need to be somebody with a technical appreciation.
Mhm.
A lot of times these large companies are not even large companies, just companies across the board are run by people who just have business knowledge and just have business experiment. And they don't appreciate whether it be manufacturing, whether it be design, whether it be construction, they don't have any direct appreciation for what it takes to develop a technical product or technical solution or technical offering. And so having somebody that has that would be absolutely paramount to continuing this in the way that it has, because this doesn't need to be run by somebody with a fancy business certificate that doesn't know anything about one, the industry, or two, to how to manage technical people.
Yeah.
So that would be another really important thing.
That was a great top three. I haven't heard the care about things other than like have personal hobbies quality before. That was a
Yeah,
really good one and a good
sure, sure.
reasoning. If you could choose any fictional character to start a business with, who would it be,
Ooh.
why, and what business would you start?
Okay. Um, the most brilliant technical mind that I can think of would have to be Tony Stark.
Do you
Um,
see my
oh,
that Tony Stark had a heart and my little Iron Man back here? Oh,
oh,
there.
I can't. I think it's just off your screen. I can't quite see it, but that's so. I
Oh,
promise I didn't see that. That's really funny.
yeah.
Um, but yeah, I mean, what more of a brilliant mind could you ask for? What better pocketbooks could you possibly ask for? Obviously,
Mhm.
fun organization, but then it goes back to the personality side too, right? I mean, he's fun, he's quirky, he's a little snappy, but yeah, I think he would be really fun uh, to partner with and develop and brainstorm. And I don't know a lot of brainstorming insight that I could provide him, but
Yeah.
I think sitting in that think tank, hanging out with Jarvis would be a good time.
Yeah.
As far as the company, I think I think one of the things I'm really excited about in the real world, but is the world of wearables. And we're looking at the augmented reality glasses and
Mhm.
watches and all these things that enhance our own personal being in life, whether it be again, then you go all the way to things like Neuralink, and it's like, all right, well, that's a little bit of outside of things that I can possibly imagine right now. But
Yeah.
I think the world of tech and wearables it would be fascinating to explore with Iron Man. His suit's obviously got a few fun features that
Yeah.
might navigating through traffic some days, but yeah, I think that would be a fun venture to get into with old Tony.
Yes, 10 out of 10. Agree. Tony Stark is the whole reason I became an engineer. Seeing that movie when I was in the fourth grade made
That's
me
cool.
say, I want to do that.
Love that. Love
Yes.
that.
Okay. Get into the last couple of questions here. Um, you've accomplished a lot of goals, and I know in our career and in our life, sometimes we have all these great ideas and all these great goals, but we don't always know how to get from point A to point B. So, what would you say has been an impactful lesson you've learned about how to set goals and how to pursue goals in your career?
Yeah, really, really, really good question. There's a lot of trial and error, and there's a lot of different there's a lot of different case studies. There's books and recommendations. I mean, SMART goals. I mean, that's an easy default.
Hmm.
Uh, I've found a lot of success, honestly, in the written goals. I know that everybody says that, but they say it because it's true. So writing goals down, staying true to them. But the accountability is another big thing. Is don't keep your goals to yourself. Share your goals, share your successes. Don't feel like it's bragging. You got
Mm.
to do it in a tactful way.
Yeah.
Every time we, have a good quarter, I'm not necessarily posting our earnings, to my
Yeah.
LinkedIn feed. But I've got a circle of friends that know how we're doing, and that accountability and that check-in. And again, it's not about bragging or flaunting how well we're doing, or it's not even just financial goals. It can be goals
Mm.
of any kind. It can be personal fitness goals. It can be um, family goals.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, the other thing too is setting a broad range of goals. Us as humans, we like to be successful. We like to win. We like to accomplish things. So set goals, not just goals that are easy to obtain, but let your goals be broad.
Yeah.
And again, it kind of goes back to being well-rounded. Again, whether it be in personal fitness or, I've gotten really in the last probably few years of going and being outdoors. So I've got a backpack and I'll go disappear into the foothills of Colorado for a couple days and do some primitive camping.
Yeah.
Um, but goals like that, like, okay, well, can I climb a mountain that's a little bit taller? So just goals that keep you always moving forward, keep challenging yourself, set goals, accomplish goals, have some crazy goals too. Like,
Yeah.
don't sell yourself short. Have goals that just seem absolutely silly and outrageous and almost impossible. But you know what? Maybe one day it wouldn't be. Maybe you're going to talk to that person one day that's going to give you that opportunity of a lifetime, and that goal will be accomplished. So yeah, that's kind of the long and the short of it is
Yeah.
goals diverse, keep your accountability group, have a circle of friends, and share your successes because we do really want to cheer on our friends, especially our people that we keep closest to us, and
Yeah.
encourage others to do the same. Because when other people are joyous and happy and excited about life, that's going to rub off on you too.
Yes, that's so good. Because sometimes I do struggle with the sharing the goal and coming off braggy, or even for something I haven't done, just sharing a goal and then, you have concern that it's like, I know this is outrageous and I don't want the other person to be like, oh, that's too outrageous. So that's a good reminder to keep accountability is a good part of setting goals. So that's
Sure,
something I need to implement in my own life.
absolutely.
Um, where do you see yourself in Ultimus in the future?
That's a really good question, and that's a goal, right? That I
Yeah.
think about regularly, and how does that goal change? I answer that question like this. I would love for this company to be as large as it possibly can, as long as we maintain the culture that we have today.
Mm,
And that's putting engineers directly in front of clients. It's not hiding behind a veil of project managers or account managers.
mhm,
And maybe that growth is a little bit slower,
mhm,
but ultimately that's who we want to be. We want to be focused on building the communities, not just companies. We
mhm,
want to be focused on providing solutions that are better, faster, and less expensive for our clients.
mhm.
And so if that's a 50-person company, if that's a 500-person company, if that's a 5,000-person company or more, that doesn't really matter to me. It's more about the journey than the end goal. Yes, we have end goals. I don't really have an exit strategy at this point.
Yeah.
That's not the point of why I'm doing this. I'm doing it because I enjoy working with the people. I enjoy this industry, and I enjoy growing something for and with my family. And so I know that's not an exact answer to your question, but we're gonna have as much fun and touch as many lives as we can, maintaining our culture. And if we can't do that, then one of two things: either one, we need to step back and or stop growing, or two, reevaluate, reassess, and game plan to reset. And then how do we continue to move forward from there?
Yes, I think that was a great answer to my question, and
All right.
I can't wait to see the trajectory because I'm sure I will be seeing and hearing about it. And it also speaks to the importance of having like a mission, having a culture in your company that you can
Mhm.
always revert back to when you think when the ship might get a little rocky. It's like, okay, let's go back to the core of who we are. Do we still align with this? So
Absolutely.
that's great. Last question. You've already shared so much advice and so many words of wisdom, but I'm going to open the floor for you one last time. If there was anything that you could tell an individual who is trying to bring their idea to life and go from imagination to tangible thing, what advice would you give them?
Yeah, and I think we touched on this a little bit, but I'm glad you brought it up again because I think it's important to hammer down here right here at the end. Um, First and foremost is go for it,
Mhm.
but don't just go for it. Let's be calculated. Let's have a little bit of a game plan. Don't quit your job that's providing for your family and go out completely blindfolded.
Yeah.
Um, but absolutely, we should all strive for something bigger than us. And so if you have an idea, talk to people, find a mentor, find someone who's done it before. Um, Now, that's a possibility that somebody listening to this podcast, and I hope there's someone out there that does, that has a truly original thought, original concept that's never been done before, thought of before, and there's literally no one out there on this planet that can help them. If you do, then you probably don't need a lot of help because your invention or your idea is going to rock the planet and give me a call. I want to hear about it. But other than that, in most cases, somebody's done something similar to whatever this idea is.
Mhm.
So talk to people, expand your network, go find a mentor who at least can help guide you in the general direction. Maybe it's not, here's the playbook for what you've done.
Mhm.
Maybe so. Maybe, if you're trying to open a franchise and you get a corporate playbook and it's go run this, but there's still going to be some nuances of the people that you hire and the services that you offer and the way that you present yourself in your organization.
Mhm.
But it's my advice would be to that end is go find some help.
Mhm.
Go find someone to talk to, whether it be just a confidant or a circle of friends or an advisory board, or even if it's just an individual. Don't go just sign up for the first business consultant that happens to pop up on your Google feed,
Mhm.
but truly talk to people and understand, do they understand you? Do they understand your personality? What are you trying to accomplish? And then the third piece of that would be trust the process. I know I said that before, but that's a really big thing because it's not easy. It's not starting a company or inventing a product, whatever it may be. There's going to be some late nights. There's going to be some sleepless nights. There's going to be times where you question if what you're doing is right. But I believe if it's right, it's going to work out. And if it's not right, then it's going to become very obvious in a way that it's not just questions. It's like, okay, hold on here. This for sure is not working. This isn't, oh, I had a bad day. Because listen,
Yeah.
we all have those. But it's if you want it bad enough, you'll make it happen.
Yeah.
And I would say that's kind of the question that I would put back on anybody who asks me, like, well, what do I need to do to start a company? It's like, do you have what it takes to do whatever it takes? And not to the standpoint of certainly doing anything silly. We'll just leave it at that. But
Yeah.
just know that it's not going to be easy. There's going to be hardship. There's going to be times where you question yourself. And this could even be, and maybe I'll do my little soapbox here for a second, but
Yeah.
not just starting a company, but let's say somebody has a personal goal. Maybe they want to kick a bad habit, or
Mhm.
they want to lose some weight, or they want to do whatever certain thing. It doesn't just have to be an idea or a business. Um, but check in with yourself and think about like sometimes, man, just buckle up.
Yeah.
Just do what you got to do. And I'll say if you want it bad enough, you'll make it happen. And if you aren't willing to put in the effort, then maybe you should do something else.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the nicest way I can put it. And I mean that in the nicest way possible. But if you think you kind of want to do something and you're not sure if you're willing to really do what it takes, that's fine. I'm all for exploring, right? And the
Yeah.
first time that I ever took a backpacking trip, I borrowed some equipment from a buddy and I disappeared for 3 days. And I was like, I'm gonna have my phone on me, but
Yeah.
I'm gonna see if this is something I enjoy. And luckily it was. But there have been a lot of things I've tried that I was like, you know what? This is not for me.
Yeah.
But I wasn't going to try to force it, but I also wasn't upset about it. And I've got friends who are really good at certain things, and I'm not good at those things. Um, and so again, I think it all just comes back to like being real with yourself and understanding how much you think you want something
Mm.
and how much you're willing to make that happen. I think is kind of the last thing I'll say to that.
Well, that was an amazing answer to round off this episode. Daniel, thank you so much for joining me today. And you just shared, so I know that the system family and the podcast audience is gonna have learned so much from this episode, so many words of wisdom, so many gems that we can actually take with us and implement practically. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Rena. It's been a pleasure. Really enjoyed it. Looking forward to staying in touch, and hopefully we can circle back here in the future.
Absolutely. Have a great rest of your Saturday.
Thanks so much, you too.